The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Knowledge is power, and this is powerful stuff. Wellness Education Cannabis Advocates of Nevada present the We Can 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour with the We Can radio team. For the next 60 minutes, we'll take an in-depth look at the cannabis reform revolution sweeping the nation. Now, let's fire up the news hour. Here is the We Can radio team.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour. I'm your host, Michael McAuliffe, and with me in the studio today is a longtime friend and activist in the marijuana movement in Nevada and beyond, Pierre Werner. How
Hey
you doing,
guys, How you doing?
All right. Well, we're you know,
how you doing, Mike?
I'm
it's an honor
really
to be
well.
on your show.
You know, it's been a while since we've been together. So
but we've been through a lot.
We have been through a lot. You know, so has this movement, and yet in some ways, as I said on the ride over, it's almost like we're back where we started from some years ago. You know, as I was pulling news stories together for today's show, and looking from Colorado and Montana and California and here in Nevada, I'm thinking of, you know, what a history, what we have seen in the course of this movement over the last 15 years. When we met was during the original campaign to legalize marijuana. Back then, I think it was question 9 back in 2002, and their offices were over on Sahara, and I remember meeting you there then, and along with others who have been involved with this fight in the long term, including Chris G., County Commissioner.
2003, right?
That was actually the spring and summer of 2002, because that's when the elections were. And Chris Giuliani had just was still in the legislature and had just shepherded that bill through. And we thought great things were going to happen, and unfortunately, it's taken a while, and it's not without sacrifice that these things have happened. None of these things ever happen easily.
We sacrificed a lot, Mike.
Without a doubt.
Pioneers, you know that.
I've heard that from other people, actually.
Yeah. It's funny.
So as I'm looking at this, we'll touch on a few of these things. You know, but when we first met back in 2002, you were just at that point, that was pre-Dr. Reefer, and you were just looking to be active and make a difference in this. And why did you first get involved with the marijuana reform movement?
Well, the legalization of marijuana has always been special to me. I had a high school friend at 14 that his parents put him into a rehab, and it was just because we were smoking pot, chasing girls, and lifting weights. You know, we weren't doing anything else. And I thought it was wrong, and I wanted to change that. And then, you know, I got into selling marijuana, even international, when I got popped in New Jersey with 170-something pounds. And then when I got out of there, that was in 2000, and when I got out of there, I got out in 2001. I was there for 8 months, 4 days, something like that. And I got out there, and Nevada had just legalized it for medical reasons. And I said, you know what? I'm cool with that. If you'll let me be legal, I'll just sell to medical marijuana patients. And then, you know, I got informed through the process that the patients have to have that ID. So I started getting them legal. And then little by little, you know, I just built up a company. But I kept everything medical.
And it was because there was a
supposedly
need out there. You know, what Nevada did was the people voted to have a medical marijuana system in place whereby people could have a supply, and it's right in the constitutional amendment for appropriate methods of supply for authorized patients. And so everybody thought that back after it was voted on in 2000 that we were going to get dispensaries at that point, because that was the logical next step forward, because you couldn't expect these people who are very ill to be farmers essentially and producing their own medicine. And so we knew at that point that there was a need for more of it. And in some of those early Department of Agriculture hearings, they were very skeptical about the need for a professional class, and they were worried about a whole bunch of drug dealers coming in and taking over.
And then I showed up too.
And then you showed up,
But you remember though the state law where you could possess 1 ounce and grow 7 plants.
Sure.
But you couldn't buy it anywhere.
Right.
And what if you were paralyzed, paraplegic? Being told to make your own aspirin. It was just a ludicrous law, and we tried to fight it, and we fought it, and
and eventually
I was Nevada's first patient to go to state prison
for medical marijuana.
for medical marijuana.
Absolutely.
My grow houses.
Absolutely. And, back at that time, the Department of Agriculture was running the program, and they were very concerned that the federal government was going to come in and raid, because at that point we had just a newly elected Republican president with an extremely conservative Republican attorney general who was very anti-pot, and the feds were going around and raiding these different facilities in states around the country. And of course, at the same time that Nevada got its program started in 2000, within a couple of months of that, Colorado also began their medical marijuana program. So Nevada at that time was not the first by any means to move into this area, and there were guidelines in place from some of these other states, but it was still a very rough and ready. Just kind of figure it out as you're going. Even a few years after that, when we went to Colorado in 2009, all you had to do was go down to City Hall, pay $20, and get a business license, and you were a medical marijuana dispensary, or you were a cultivator, or that sort of thing. And it worked at that time.
I remember that I even came to you and I told you about this, and I said, hey, man, how about helping me find, because I had just gotten out of state prison like 8 months before that. So I was kind of hurting on cash, and I said, how about you help me, finance a trip for me? I'll go scout out, Colorado and give you a full report. Mm-hmm. And you gave me like $500 and said, yeah, give me a full report.
Yeah.
And I remember calling you, get your butt down here, man. This is unbelievable. You can walk into City Hall with $20 and get a business license. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was easy. It was for the taking. And, I did that dispensary in Boulder, Denver. Mm-hmm. You did the one in Colorado Springs. Mm-hmm. And
it was good. And actually, I would say that as compared to my experience here in Nevada, working with patients, which was a very much one-on-one situation because of the way things are structured here, that going to Colorado was really kind of eye-opening, because I got to see the business from a whole nother perspective, because now all of a sudden it was a dispensary, and now you weren't dealing with the same patients, and you knew what their condition was, and you might go visit them at their home or whatever.
I'll be honest with you, man. I never gave a shit, Well, I wouldn't say that, but
this
because
is one of America's prime pot activists.
Some of the people, they really did need it.
Yes.
But some of the other ones didn't. And, when I was in state prison, man, in High Desert State Prison, mm-hmm. and my cellie was a murderer, I remember being so fuming mad. And I said, okay, you sons of bitches, you're going to put me in prison for growing the marijuana for the sick people. Okay, when I get out of here, I'm going to legalize everybody in the state of Nevada, because nobody should be in prison for a plant.
Absolutely true.
And so I don't care what your condition is. I really don't want to hear your story, because I got so much stuff to do on my own. Mm-hmm. That, people want to take my time and tell me everything. I don't have time for that.
You can fight for their rights without necessarily having to read their biography.
Yeah, and putting a dispensary up is like putting a flag up, and
very
saying,
much so.
We're here, we're legal, we're just like any other business, and we deserve to be open.
Yes, absolutely. And according to the state of Nevada, there was a need, and one of the reasons that we were comfortable fighting this battle at the time was because here in Nevada, we knew that them prohibiting dispensaries or them prohibiting the actual sale or supply of cannabis to medical patients was unconstitutional, and ultimately it got proven that way. And unfortunately, that situation doesn't help when you have the federal government coming in. And just to clarify for our audience, you've talked about prison and going to jail as a medical marijuana patient and all that. Anytime that you've been incarcerated, your conviction history is all based on it's all marijuana. It's all medical marijuana. It's not
with the exception of New Jersey, that 170 pounds.
Okay. That was still marijuana, though.
That was still marijuana.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not as if you were going in a direction that most of the American people don't already agree with. I mean, a recent survey just a couple of months before the election by Time Magazine showed that 60% of Americans now favor the legalization of marijuana. And with the result of Election Day, we've got roughly a quarter of the people in the country living in legalization or medical marijuana states. And now we have 29 states with medical marijuana programs, closer to 40 if you include the CBD programs.
It's incredible how it's
we're winning
gone.
This battle.
Yeah, because then after Colorado, when I came back, after Colorado passed that law that no convicted felons can own a dispensary, I had to sell. They passed that law where you had to be a resident retroactively, and that kicked you out. So then when I came back and, we got into the raids here, I remember being in federal prison for that one. And then when the voters legalized it in Oregon, or no, Colorado. It was Washington and Colorado. And I was like, they can't stop us, and even the billboards, I mean, they weren't down. I was basically running my business, but from prison. So
I remember after the raids in 2010 that people were justifiably angry, and a group of us, about 60 of us or so, went down to the county commission about 3 weeks after the raids, and I gave a fiery speech there on our patients, our rights, our duties, I sort of closed with a quote attributed to Gandhi that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then they win. And I said, well, they did that, and so now they're fighting us, so that means we're going to win soon. And of course, in the aftermath of those raids, certain federal officers would say to me, "Aha, it doesn't look like you're winning now," and blah blah blah, smart ass. But in fact, we have.
Yeah.
We have won this
You
battle
know what?
in the hearts
This
and
guy
minds
right
of the
here
American
is the
people.
prime example of fighting, and if you don't know his history and how hard he fought, against the government, which is, he's the number one reason for me, in my mind, for the legalization of all drugs, because it all should be legal and regulated, and nobody should be in prison for responsible use of whatever you want to use.
And for those of you who don't have eagle eyes, this is Pablo Escobar, who is certainly a controversial figure here in North America.
The world's biggest gangster.
The world's biggest gangster, or was at one point. But what he did actually in his local community was so philanthropic that he was seen as a big benefactor down there. And
he's seen as a saint.
Yes, but larger forces outside his immediate area determined he was a danger and went after him. And that's what the federal government did when they came in here into Nevada and started raiding dispensaries. They're an outside force that said, "Oh no, this is a big problem." And it was not a problem.
It was a dispensary.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break. And we were helping people, sick people. Like, it's sick of the government that they came in and really.
I think it's more that they were at wits' end, and that they were generally law-abiding people, but they were trying to get
This was organized because there were 50 other dispensaries.
I'm talking about the patients. I'm talking about the patients being at wits' end.
I'm talking about who ordered the raid, because this was a political
Without a doubt, the best
Conspiracy.
information I've gotten over the last 5 years, 6 years, is that these raids were instigated at the behest of the Metropolitan Police Department, because
Sheriff.
they realized, yes, and Sheriff Young at that time, right? And anyway, and Jerry Keller, and yeah, they realized that they were not going to be able to get these convictions under state law, and so they turned to the federal government and said, "Oh, please help us."
Conspired
and
with the United States Attorney General is what they did, Mike, because they targeted us.
Well, I think it's only conspiracy if they prove in a court of law that you did something illegal, and that's never going to happen with those guys. But indeed, there was an organized movement between local police authorities who brought in the federal government, and when they came in to raid these dispensaries back in September of 2010, it was not only the police, the Metropolitan Police Department, or the DEA, but they had Henderson cops, and they had the IRS Criminal Investigative Division in there. They had North Las Vegas cops. They had Henderson cops. They had everybody who wanted to make a little extra overtime come in that day, because they raided 15 separate places in that one day, and that was just a crazy time. Hey, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back in just a minute and talk a little bit about some of the news of the day.
All right.
Attention medical marijuana patients. Do you know what your cannabis actually contains? Are there heavy metals, pesticides, or even mold? And what strength is it really? And is it really what you need? Well, the answers to these questions are simple. DigiPath Labs. DigiPath Labs is a Nevada state-approved medical marijuana testing facility whose scientists carefully test products for safety and potency, all within the state's rigorous mandate. You can buy with confidence and trust, knowing DigiPath Labs has tested your medicine. If you're a licensed grower, dispenser, extractor, or edibles manufacturer in Nevada and want unparalleled consumer confidence, go to digipathlabs.com and find out what we can do for you. And as a patient, only go to dispensaries that carry the DigiPath Labs seal of approval. That's digipathlabs.com, DIGIPATH labs.com. Or call us at 702-209-2429. That's 702-209-2429.
Hi, I'm Armin Yamanijan, CEO of Essence Dispensaries, and I'd like to let you know a little bit about our company. As a completely complimentary service, our on-site nurse is here to meet with any patient or non-patient to discuss dosing and best practices. We have 3 convenient locations. We have one location on Tropicana between Decatur and Jones, which is our west side location. Our Henderson location is on the corner of Sunset and Green Valley Parkway, and we're proud to announce that we have the first and only dispensary on the Las Vegas Strip, on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Sahara. Our prices are the lowest prices in town and the highest quality medicine. Please come and see us at one of our 3 convenient locations or visit us at essencevegas.com. You can also call us at 702-978-7575. Once again, the number is 702-978-7575.
And welcome back to the Weekend 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour. I'm your host, Mike McAuliffe, with my guest in the studio today, Dr. Reefer, the original Dr. Reefer, Pierre Werner. All right, taking a look at some of the news that's around here, we were just mentioning before the break Colorado, and I have an article here from our friend Derek Stanley over at Hemp News that notes that Colorado has now passed $1 billion in sale of marijuana products in 2016, and wow. It says here that roughly $1.1 billion in legal sales of legal recreational and medical marijuana were sold by the end of October, according to the tax data released from the state's Department of Revenue. 2015 saw total sales of $996 million, according to reports from the state. So what this is saying is that in the first 10 months of the year, they've already exceeded by 10% what they did in the entire 2015 year, and they still had two more months to go. And further on in the article, it says that they expected to take in $1.3 billion for the year, and that Colorado has collected more than $150 million in taxes from legal marijuana sales through October 2016. The first $40 million being allocated to school projects, and this is something that I see a lot in these schools, right? And when the Nevada Question 2 initiative got done, a number of these, they would say, oh, we're going to give the money to the schools, we're going to give the money to the schools. And then later on, when the state gets their hands on it and decides, well, we don't want to give so much money, we want to put it into the slush fund so we can use it for other things, that's fine. But a lot of the people who have been opposed to this on the other side of the fence before this November election were saying, oh, well, not much is going to education, and this money is being, sent to other places, so it's not really helping the kids, so they're lying to you, so don't vote for it. And obviously that argument fell
my
flat.
argument to that is like, oh yeah, well, how much does alcohol or cigarettes contribute to your, school education? Because it's ridiculous. Why should it?
Why should it? Yeah. Well, there's the argument made that we've cut smoking by over 30% in the last 30 years by a campaign of education, by a campaign of letting people know it's bad for them, letting them know what the health effects are and this and that. So to that degree,
waste of my taxpayer
education.
money, if you ask me.
And that is your libertarian right here in the state of Nevada, if not the United States anymore. We'll see. But even so, with this, collecting $150 million in taxes and $40 million being allocated.
That is a lot of money.
$40 million allocated to school. I'm sure any school district would like to get a chunk of money like that. And $150 million in taxes is fine because it's not
look,
as
Mike,
if
you're never gonna convince the haters. There was a guy on my Twitter. He follows TikTok, Pat Hickey? Pat Hickey, yeah.
State senator,
Yeah.
assemblyman, yeah.
So he always complained about, they're not the schools aren't going to get enough taxes, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, but you're collecting $160 million in taxes. That's what they just collected, right?
Yeah.
And that's the first 10 months?
Yep.
Like, come on, how much more do you want, you bloodsuckers? And he's a Republican, too, and he always fights against taxes,
Yes.
But then when it's marijuana, let's tax the living hell out of them.
Yes. Yes.
Give me a break.
And that's what happened here when in 2013 with the dispensaries. The Republicans were all about, no new taxes. We don't want to raise taxes on anybody. But because these dispensaries were considered an entirely new business and new industry, it's a new form of revenue. So they can support taxing all the patients and the pot smokers without having to say they've raised taxes on anybody because they've created a new tax. So it's just political.
And I'm glad the voters of Nevada, legalized it recreationally.
Absolutely.
Because it's just nonsense.
Well, as you said earlier, nobody should go to jail or have a legal record or have their life otherwise harmed by their interactions with a plant.
Or with any substance, really, man. If you can control yourself and be, whatever you want to be behind your closed doors or out in public even. That's what they have bars for.
Yeah.
And now in Colorado, Washington, and some other places, they're trying to be able to consume in public just as anything else. If you're intoxicated, you get a taxi or you find a friend to drive you home, and you use it responsibly. There's no reason anybody who steals or hurts or kills people, you deserve to be in prison.
Sure.
But if you want to use responsibly, like drinking a beer or whatever, knock yourself out. Whatever you use. You shouldn't go to prison or jail or anything else.
And speaking about drinking a beer, Colorado's governor, John Hickenlooper, of course, was a member of the Coors beer family. And so he made his money selling booze to people.
And they opposed marijuana.
And he opposed marijuana, said it was a terrible idea, it was awful. He would, he campaigned against it in 2012. And now, 4 years later, he's saying, maybe that wasn't a bad thing. He said, if
$160 million in tax revenue.
Just for 1 year, yeah.
Maybe it's not such a bad thing.
Exactly. And, he says now that his issue is that maybe they didn't regulate edibles enough at the start. But other than that, he's happy with it. And so, that shows that you can convert people who were against it at one point in time. When we went up there in the fall of 2009 and through the first half of 2010, there were a lot of people out there who wanted to help others, who were doing it for the right reasons. In Colorado Springs, we found
I remember
all of that sort of stuff.
I remember I offered you Dr. Reefer Denver. You'll always be Dr. Reefer to me.
No, you're the original Dr.
I'm the
Reefer.
OG.
I'm happy to let you have that one. But
you're Dr. Reefer.
the thing is that in Colorado, they took a much more sensible approach than they took here in Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
And they ultimately, once the Supreme Court decided that dispensaries had a right to exist, they opened up, kind of with open arms, because they really allowed the business to flourish, and they didn't put it under great scrutiny. I remember one time I was in Denver at the dispensary that I had. And somebody threw a rock through the window at midnight, and the cops called us and everything, and I was staying at some motel down the street or whatever. We were really kind of pioneering it there, and came back, and the cops took the report. They were friendly. We had the medical marijuana, some growing in the back, and we had our meds there, and the police were absolutely polite, professional. They had no
Yeah, that was
issues with us at
shocking,
all.
wasn't it? Because I remember I had a similar issue where I beat up the burglar that tried to buy.
Yeah, that was made the news and everything.
Yeah, and then they wanted to come in and interview me and ask me what happened, and I was like, I'm a dispensary, you know that, right?
Yeah.
You sure you're cool about coming down here into my dispensary?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, man, we just want to do a report. You're cool, you're legal.
Yep.
I was like, wow, okay, come on
And
down.
at that time, part of being an entrepreneur and building a business and you trying to put all your sweat equity into a place is that you really live, breathe the entire experience. And so the case that you're referring to was because at your dispensary in Boulder, you were actually, in those opening days, you were actually sleeping there. You had a big basement in this place, beautiful space.
3,000 square feet, the biggest dispensary in Boulder, Colorado.
At the time,
and
yeah.
remember, Mike, I took my king-size bed from Vegas, and when I moved to Colorado, I rented a apartment too, but it had like a single or a twin or something like that, and I just put the king-size down in the basement. I thought, sometimes if I have too much to drink, I could just pass out there or whatever. And you know what? I liked actually sleeping in my dispensary.
Yeah.
It was cool.
You were sleeping in a room with your plants, so you were getting plenty of oxygen. And what happened, as quite often does, is somebody thought, a medical marijuana place, this is an easy score. And so in the middle of the night, they tried to force the back door and break in, and they obviously thought the place was empty, and you gave them a little woof-oh.
Yeah, I beat the hell out of that one guy.
And
the other one ran away.
And then you made the local news and
local and national.
And national. And
I needed that too because I didn't have money for advertising. And after that made me a legend in Colorado. I had people coming to my dispensary just to shake my hand.
I don't know if I'd go over legend. I mean, Charlie Brown didn't like you, and Charlie Brown, besides being a comic book character, which in some ways he was also I believe a state senator in Colorado.
No, Charlie Brown was a
Denver?
Denver city councilman.
City councilman.
But there was a state senator too that, these politicians, man. I got a picture of all three of us in some convention that was in Denver, where we're all smiling and
Yeah.
And that one guy, the state senator, turned around and pushed for the felony law.
Yeah.
Which excluded me.
And
then
they
Charlie Brown
mentioned you specifically sometimes. We don't need Dr. Reefer coming in from out of state and doing all this stuff. And
big gangster from Las Vegas.
Oh my God! And there were so many people coming into Colorado at the time, just as are happening here in Nevada now, to take advantage of this. So it's amazing how it's okay in so many other different areas, but not over here. So, at the same time that all this was going on up there, Montana had also passed a medical marijuana law. And roughly at the time when we were having the problems down here in the federal raids in Nevada, Montana was experiencing its own issues because people had opened up dispensaries there and were trying to help out. And so the state went in and they raided these people. They put them out of business. They really strangled the program.
Even the feds.
Yeah.
Because I was locked up with some guy from Montana. And
Yep.
he worked at one of the dispensaries. So
Yep. That point is valid because it's not only a case of the people who owned these facilities,
was
but
the
they actually put the
workers.
workers in jail. And I remember one of Johnny Bermeal's workers from the Happiness Consultant, which was one of the places that got raided in 2010. A couple of years later, he was sitting out in that federal holding facility in Pahrump, and he had been there for some months, and he was just a low-level nobody. And so the idea that they were jamming him up, and it's not even as if they were trying to get him to roll over on somebody, because at that time all the defendants from 2010 had already taken plea deals, including this guy, and they just decided that they didn't like him, and they put him in jail for a few months more. And scary situation.
The government is really, the people running the United States District Attorney's Office, they're really petty, man. I mean, and they have so much power to charge you for whatever they want. They're really just going after statistics to, show that they're working. They're taking up time, that could be messing with murderers, rapists, robbers.
But you see, murder, rape, and in general robbery are not federal crimes. Those are all state or local level issues. The federal government rarely gets involved with murder unless it's conspiracy to murder somebody like a John Gotti or something like that. But by and large, the feds stay out of those crimes.
By and large, but still though, the feds usually take on the more serious charges.
That's the idea.
And they're backed up like at least 2 years, 2 to 3 years. If everybody actually went to trial, it'd be backed up for like 90 years is what
I read that according to the Wall Street Journal, that over 95% of all cases in this country now are plea bargained, and of those that go to trial, roughly 96% of them result in convictions. And so the system seems to be very stacked. I cannot believe that it's just a case that law enforcement across the country is so good they only arrest the guilty people, and they only go after those people who are serious trouble, and they get them, and that's why they're able to convict them. Personally, I've seen that there are a lot of people who just get jammed up in a system that doesn't care, that's very petty. And you're talking about the U.S. attorneys. I've read in legal writings that they're considered, the 93 U.S. attorneys in this country are considered the 93 most powerful people in the country because they operate on general guidelines from the Attorney General, but within their district, like here in the state of Nevada, or there are 4 districts in California, what they say goes. And if they want to make somebody's life hell, they can do it. That is indeed what happened here in Nevada with some of these people, because they were not
with us.
They were not violent people. They're not bad people. You're trying to help sick people, and you get the full weight of the federal government. It's a scary
the meat
thing.
grinder.
It absolutely is. Hey, we're going to take another quick break and then come back with our guest, the original Dr. Reefer, Pierre Werner. Stick with us.
From the soothing sounds of a water wall to the warmth, wood interior, and beautiful artwork, as soon as you enter Sahara Wellness, you are welcomed into a relaxing space where we strive to provide our patients with a healthy balance of mind, body, and spirit. That balance is achieved through a compassionate and knowledgeable staff who possesses both a passion for the medical cannabis industry as well as unrivaled dedication to assisting those in need of a natural method of pain relief. Our bud tenders are available to assist patients in selecting cannabis-based medicine that best suits their needs from our selection of flower, waxes, CBD lotions, and delicious edibles. Sahara Wellness is located at 420 East Sahara Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada. Check out our entire menu at www.420sahara.com.
Getting Legal offers an informative and simple way for you to get your marijuana card. Why come to Getting Legal to get your marijuana card? We have a 99% approval rating and the lowest price in town. Avoid legal problems. Getting Legal can get you legal fast. Ready for a new start? Come in now and get relief from your chronic conditions affecting your quality of life. Call Getting Legal today at 702-979-9999. That's 702-979-9999, or visit our website at gettinglegal.com to get your marijuana card today.
Attention medical marijuana patients. Do you know what your cannabis actually contains? Are there heavy metals, pesticides, or even mold? And what strength is it really? And is it really what you need? Well, the answers to these questions are simple. DigiPath Labs. DigiPath Labs is a Nevada approved medical marijuana testing facility whose scientists carefully test products for safety and potency, all within the state's rigorous mandate. You can buy with confidence and trust knowing DigiPath Labs has tested your medicine. If you're a licensed grower, dispenser, extractor, or edibles manufacturer in Nevada and want unparalleled customer service and consumer confidence, go to digipathlabs.com and find out what we can do for you. And as a patient, only go to dispensaries that carry the DigiPath Labs seal of approval. That's digipathlabs.com, DIGIPATH labs.com. Or call us at 702-209-2429. That's 702-209-2429.
And we're back with the Nevada medical. Well, here I am. I'm reading the first story about a medical marijuana bill, the Nevada Cannabis News Hour. Anyway, so in Mexico, they're moving forward, and Mexico was watching the American election. I think they were half watching it for Donald Trump and a big wall, and half watching it for our drug policy. Yeah. And certainly, since the results have come across, we have seen officials in Mexico saying that they want to move towards legalization. They were looking to see what California did, and it's such a huge market that Mexico seems to be moving in a similar direction. And we have...
I've been keeping my eyes on them because my mom did move to Mexico.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, she lives in Playa del Carmen right now.
Well, there may be stuff happening there because Mexico may soon have a legal medical marijuana industry available for people after its Senate now passed new legislation this past Tuesday to approve cannabis use for qualified patients.
I didn't hear about that.
The bill, which was submitted to Congress by President Enrique Peña Nieto early this year, still must be approved by the lower house before medical marijuana becomes legal in Mexico. Now, one of the things that struck me about finding this is that it was the president who submitted this bill to Congress and said, "Hey, we need to do that." Wow, what a concept! Well, we don't do that in this country.
Well, no, though. He wouldn't have done it though if the Supreme Court didn't rule
that personal possession was not was constitutional, and it was unconstitutional to make laws against personal possession.
Yeah, and so
absolutely.
There were like 4 patients in some organization that sued the government, and they have the right to cultivate, transport, consume. I don't think they have to sell, but they have all those 3. So. They knew that they were going to get pushed in that direction, and that's why the president came up with this and probably said, who wants to pay for my political re-election?
Yeah, maybe so, but it's a good move.
It is. It definitely is.
If you think that the entire country of Mexico might become a medical marijuana zone, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of territory, and even
it changes a lot of laws because in Mexico they're really against the legalization of marijuana, really in general. I think the majority.
But I think we're going to see that happen too, with what's happening.
Oh yeah, we'll see it happen.
Yeah.
But just that the Supreme Court justices ruled in the medical marijuana favor, just shows you a lot that really intelligent people who have heard the arguments and have seen the evidence, it should be legal. This is so ridiculous.
It is, and I'm heartened by the fact that not only Mexico but much of Latin America and South America are moving away from the U.S. drug war rhetoric, and they're essentially saying now that you're forcing us into doing this. We're paying the price from this with all the deaths down here and the poverty that comes from the corruption that these people engender. And you Americans are up there. You're just getting high and having fun. And you're not paying, any of the consequences that we are. Yeah, well, I know. But
keep sending us your drugs.
But that is a viewpoint that's prevalent down there.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to rail against it, especially when you have states like Washington and Oregon and Colorado, Alaska, which for several years
Nevada.
now have had legalization in place, and so it's
how come it's legal over there while we keep confiscating and locking up these poor people over here?
So I see another story here that's not Mexico, a little bit closer to home, but actually other side of the country in Massachusetts, which we've been following for the past couple of months during the the election season, and we know that Massachusetts also voted to legalize in November. And
For medical, right?
no, this is legalization, recreational. We were on the ballot in 4 states and 5 states, and passed in 4 of them. Only Arizona failed this November.
Okay.
But in Massachusetts, we have the Senate President, State Senate President, Stan Rosenberg, who happens to be a Democrat, said Tuesday that he would be interested in raising the legal smoking age for marijuana under state law to 25. and he admits that this is his idea alone. Maybe he was taking too deep of a hit in the back room or something like that.
Or nobody donated to his campaign.
Yeah. He said, I feel obligated to put this on the table and have it discussed, even if the decision is to stick with 21. And he says that the reason for this was because he's read things saying that the human brain continues developing until 25 years old, and so you don't want to have those poor 24-year-olds lose out on those last extra
That is
brain
such a
cells.
ridiculous argument, Mike. And they use this all the time.
All the time.
That, like, I actually want to see this because I've been smoking pot since I was 13, you know, and I know most of my friends are in the same boat, and this is just complete, not only that, but we used acid back in those days, you know, and so many other drugs in my teenage years, you know.
Of course.
That if that was true, I'd be retarded by now.
and actually, you know, and they said, oh, you know, you smoke pot, you're going to kill brain cells.
Yeah.
You drink alcohol, you're going to
They're
kill brain
dying
cells.
every day.
They're dying every day, but they're also getting replaced. And I've read things within the past several months, medical articles showing that some of the cannabinoids in cannabis actually help the brain build new cells.
Yeah.
So it's just the opposite. It's the same false argument that they've been making for years with the gateway theory. Oh my God, pot! You're going to use pot, and
you're going to be a heroin addict.
Heroin addict, right? And what we're finding
This
is
is
the
your
gate
brain
swings
on drugs.
in the other direction. That more people are using pot as an exit from opioids than are leading them into opioid use.
Yeah.
So
and there's data on that too.
And
We're not
there's
just
hard data
talking
on
about that.
stuff. And so for this guy to say, oh, I think we should raise the I was against legalization, but legalize. So now I want to stop people who are under a quarter century old from smoking it. You know, and let those older
but you're
people,
18 and you're eligible to go to the war?
Yeah.
Go ahead, bud.
We'll let you go die for your country.
Yeah.
You know, we'll let you go get cancer at 21 from cigarettes, and you know, drive blind drunk if you choose to. But you're not capable of
smoking marijuana for you.
But it's
youngster.
not going anywhere. But
Youngster.
It just goes to show what we're fighting against.
It's
all this
ridiculous.
time.
It is ridiculous.
You know, it's absolutely nuts. So let's see. What else do we have here that I find interesting? We talk about criminal issues here.
Okay.
Here's from U.S. News and World Report's. Their staff writer Stephen Nelson wrote that reformers say that figures from the first full year of retail sales say that there's no surprise that drug mail has dropped after pot stores open. And I've known for decades that people, you know, would send little packages from California or from Florida to different areas, and they, you know, and
I've sent a few
little,
my time.
little greenery shows up in somebody's mailbox.
Right.
And apparently statistics provided to U.S. News and World Report by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service show that marijuana package intercepts declined again in the year fiscal year 2015, the first annual period that wholly encompasses state-regulated recreational marijuana sales in Colorado and Washington State. And basically, there's a 2-year pattern here, 2014-2015, where they're getting less intercepts, but they're indicating that apparently they're not slacking off in their attempts to interdict this stuff. But apparently, as we have pot legal in more states, there's less mailing around of the country because people don't want to be a criminal.
Well, of course not. If you make it easy for the consumer, hey, I don't have to buy it in the interweb or whatever else they can just go down to their local store.
Yeah.
Why? And you get to choose what kind of quality you get. So. Oh.
And so for that, why would you have a friend across the country send you a half pound or whatever amount it's going to be of something that you haven't looked at, you haven't smelled, you haven't tried, and
Yeah,
all of a sudden
exactly.
you're going to be stuck with a larger amount. So yeah, it's not surprising. What really surprises me about this is how these people in official positions can be so clueless about these simple economic cause and effects. We did a story last week that we covered with NIDA director Dr. Nora Volkow, and they were talking about the teen use and the fact that use 8th graders, 12th graders are using less cannabis now, and as it's becoming legal in more markets, the teen use is dropping. It's no longer the forbidden fruit and all this sort of stuff. And so we see the teen use is going down. But Dr. Volkow says, I don't know what to say about this. I had no idea of this. We expected all the results to go in the other direction. So it just shows how clueless these people really are when it comes to this policy that they're supposed to be such esteemed professionals at, and people who we are paying large amounts of tax money to dictate these policies, and they don't have a friggin' clue.
They really don't.
So with that, I have a clue that we need to stay on the air and take care of our bills. So please listen to these words from our fine advertisers, and we'll be right back.
From the soothing sounds of a water wall to the warmth, wood interior, and beautiful artwork, as soon as you enter Sahara Wellness, you are welcomed into a relaxing space where we strive to provide our patients with a healthy balance of mind, body, and spirit. That balance is achieved through a compassionate and knowledgeable staff who possesses both a passion for the medical cannabis industry as well as unrivaled dedication to assisting those in need of a natural method of pain relief. Our bud tenders are available to assist patients in selecting cannabis-based medicine that best suits their needs from our selection of flower, waxes, CBD lotions, and delicious edibles. Sahara Wellness is located at 420 East Sahara Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada. Check out our entire menu at www.420sahara.com.
Hi, I'm Armin Yamanijan, CEO of Essence Dispensaries, and I'd like to let you know a little bit about our company. As a completely complimentary service, our on-site nurse is here to meet with any patient or non-patient to discuss dosing and best practices. We have 3 convenient locations. We have one location on Tropicana between Decatur and Jones, which is our west side location. Our Henderson location is on the corner of Sunset and Green Valley Parkway, and we're proud to announce that we have the first and only dispensary on the Las Vegas Strip, on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Sahara. Our prices are the lowest prices in town and the highest quality medicine. Please come and see us at one of our 3 convenient locations or visit us at essencevegas.com. You can also call us at 702-978-7575. Once again, the number is 702-978-7575.
And welcome back to the Nevada Cannabis News Hour. And here we are with our guest today, the original Dr. Reefer, Pierre Werner.
Hi.
And you know, you've been through so much in the state of Nevada and beyond. And I've talked to you over the years, and you said, I'm getting out of this. I'm done with this. This, people don't understand what I'm trying to do. And you really were focused on a message that got you multiple convictions and got you multiple stints
5.
in jail. And really, this was all about pot. And for the vast majority of this, you were helping people who were suffering. And what do you get from that?
I'm
Prison.
a 5-time convicted felon, certified career criminal.
Wow.
Dr. Reefer.
What more is there to say about that? So then, let me ask, what's the future hold for Dr.
All right,
Reefer?
so-
Where are you going from here?
As you know, the state government and the federal government now has made it extremely tough for me, to be in the marijuana business in the United States. Until they legalize it federally, if I go, if I own a dispensary or grow up, whatever it is in whatever state that it's legal, the feds can still come in and raid me, take everything. And this time, because of my career criminal
You'll have a 10-year
status,
enhancement?
if not more, man, I'm probably looking at life in prison. So I do not want to go that route. I started an internet company selling stuff online, and I've done really well with that. And I don't need to go into the marijuana business or
Tommy
any
Chong
kind
sold
of
stuff
business.
online that wasn't pot, and they still put him in jail.
Yeah, but that was a marijuana
Paraphernalia,
supposedly
pipes,
paraphernalia. Yeah. So I'm selling T-shirts and stuff like that. So I'm making sure that I'm not going to break any laws that, I can face life in prison. So what I decided to do, was keep an eye out of where it is, because marijuana still is my passion, and I do want to advance the cause. So I've kept it, countries where it's legal federally, so that I don't have this problem of legal with the state, illegal with the feds.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I can get a license, well, then I'm up for at least trying it, because, I'm Dr. Reefer, and I'm one of the world's best marijuana growers, and I've owned several dispensaries, so I know how to run these businesses.
And if I could break in there for just a sec, this is part of the continuing insanity of these regulations, because you have people who are knowledgeable, who are experienced in this business, who've been practical, hands-on working in it, and as they develop these regulations, they shut people like you out. They say that if you have a criminal record, you can't be part of this. And so what they're really saying is, okay, we're going to turn this business over to the people who were either criminals but low profile enough that they didn't get caught, or well connected enough that they didn't get prosecuted, or we're going to turn it over to business people who know nothing about pot, know nothing about this industry, and who just say the right words and fill out the right forms. And it just strikes me as a complete waste of the resources that people have spent years and years developing to shut them out of these businesses. So
it is, but I'm beyond that. Now I'm looking at fully legal, where I cannot be prosecuted for anything. And it was fun in my 30s, man. The Metro would raid down one of my grow houses. I'd go put up 2 more, so that was all fun and games. But now for me to invest my money into something, I don't want the government to have any capability of coming in and taking everything and putting me in prison. It's just not worth it to me anymore. I'm looking to build a huge company, something that's going to carry on, and I'm looking at marijuana sodas, concentrates, medicines that you can export to other countries. And that's why I went to Colombia.
And speaking of Colombia, we were talking about some of the South American countries and how they're moving towards legalization. I have a story here, once again, from Derek Stan News from the 14th, saying that Juan Manuel Santos, who's the president of Colombia, recently used his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech as an opportunity to call for the world to rethink the war on drugs. Nice. Santos said it was time to change our strategy on drugs, and that Colombia has paid the highest cost in deaths and sacrifices in the so-called war on drugs. And so he's not saying here that we have to legalize marijuana. He's calling for a greater repeal of drug prohibition, just as you were saying a little earlier in the program. So it seems that in a country that is considered the heart of the drug war, for decades, Colombia,
And it is ridiculous, Mike. You have all these people on almost every street corner in the tourist industries or tourist areas wanting to sell you cocaine, heroin, marijuana, whatever the hell you want. So they know that this is a joke. This is ludicrous. It needs to be regulated, taxed, and put into stores.
So you're saying that on the streets in Colombia that there's not that kind of stringent enforcement that we would? I don't know. I haven't been there.
Okay, I'm going to take you to Colombia one of these days. Okay,
Uh-oh.
If
Get ready, John. We're going on a road trip.
Hopefully, because I'm waiting on the regulations to come out in Colombia, and that'll determine if I go back. But there's this area, Mike, in Bogota. It's called Barrio Santa Fe, and they call it a zona of tolerancia. And
Zone of tolerance.
Zone of tolerance, and it is like a 10 to 20 square block area that just anything goes, man. It is wild. I've never seen anything like it. Like, my taxi driver took me through there, and I wanted to film, because it was so wild and crazy. And he's like, no, don't do it, man. They'll see that, and they could probably shoot at the taxi.
Wow.
I was like, okay, cool. But
I don't know. I don't know if that's where I'd want to spend my
No.
years.
It's not like that, Mike. It's not like that. But it's like it wasn't that dangerous, right? But it was wild, Mike. You've never seen anything like that.
So what do you think that that Colombia offers someone with your talents and in the way of
there's going to be like 5 different licenses: growing license, exports. Yeah, that's the one thing too. Export. That's the only country in the world that's going to allow export. There's concentrates, there's seeds, and then there's I think the medical other stuff.
Well, you were saying export, and Colombia is preparing regulations so they will export medical marijuana to any other country that has
been legalized,
that has
federally.
medical marijuana laws in it. You know, so that's a very forward-thinking thing. But
Very
at
forward. The only
time,
country in the world.
But at the same time, you have people like Kim.com down in New Zealand who had Mega Upload and was this big online pirate. And even though he was doing something down there which was legal, the U.S. government didn't like it, and they were able to raid him or convince the New Zealand authorities to raid him and are intent on bringing him back to trial in the U.S. So
I think
how
that's
do you get around
the U.S. federal government? You don't send anything to
the U.S.
To the U.S. Because you can't. It's illegal under federal law.
That's an
but
easy
under
answer.
in other countries where it's legal federally, you'll be able to. There's only like 7 or 8 of them at this current time, but it's coming.
So you're thinking that the upcoming legalization of cannabis then is an international game?
Oh yeah, definitely. Destiny requires legalization of all drugs, not just marijuana. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
And I've been so on the fence for this for a long time because I look at drugs like crack and meth and everything and say, oh my God, they're horribly destructive. But in the long term,
I can use
prohibition
it responsibly.
and prohibition and the drug war, I think, are a lot more dangerous to the country than any individual drug use. And with that thought, our time is about up for this week. We will
Trust
see
me.
you.
We're doctors. We know what we're talking about.
He's a doctor, sort of. So anyway,
Dr. Reefer
have a
Denver.
very, very happy holiday, and we'll catch you next week.